Hey there, everyone. It's Bari Norman from Expert Admissions talking college list building strategies. The first question I pretty much get always about the college list is how many schools should be on it. And there's no single number, but I would say between 8 and 10 is typical. If you have 8 schools on the list, you'll be able to get a range in. And by range, I mean, you want to make sure that you have a couple of safety schools, meaning places that there's no guarantees in admission, but that we're pretty sure you're definitely going to get in. And I like to say those are schools where I'll fall off my chair if you're not admitted. Then most of the list should include schools that we would call target. And by target, I don't mean like my favorite store with the bullseye, but I mean places where you're in target range. So some of them you will hit the bullseye and you're going to get in, and other ones you're not. And so target schools are not ones that you're definitely getting into or that you should necessarily easily get in. It just means that you're in range, and so you have a real shot. And then you also want to make sure that you include a couple of reach schools. And reach schools, by definition, are places where it's more likely that it's not going to work out, but there's good reason that you pick certain reach schools. You like a school a lot, first of all. Also, strategically, you think that there's a good shot potentially for a reach school, a reasonable shot that it could possibly work out, even though, again, reach schools by definition mean that you're most likely not getting in. But a reach school where you would say, hey, it makes sense to throw my hat in the ring would be a place maybe where you're more borderline in terms of the numbers, and it's a really, really good fit, and you can make a great case in your essays. That would be somewhere where you would say it would be a smart reach to include, and maybe an ideal place to include for early decision. And then there's also things called double reaches, and double reaches are places where, even though we don't know for sure, obviously what will happen with decisions, there are some places where you basically know you're off enough on the academics that we just know that there's very, very little chance that you could be competitive in the pool. And so sometimes people will include a double reach on their list. If you're doing that, it should be because if you have a dream school and you feel like you can't go through the application process without applying there, and you feel like, how could I go through the admissions process and not even try, for my dream school, then you know what, go for it. Throw your hat in the ring. You keep your expectations realistic about how it's going to turn out. And then you say, you know what, I never left anything on the table. I gave it a try, I gave it my best shot. But there are plenty of people who would say, listen, I know pretty much 100% that it's not going to work. And so I'm not going to put in the effort, and I'm not going to bother. And there's no right or wrong. It just depends on how you feel. As far as how you build a list, it depends on what you're interested in, so there are so many schools out there, many, many more than you can apply to. So even when you figure out what your academic range is, you're still going to have too many schools, and you're going to need to pare it down. And so you have to figure out what you want. And a lot of students have a hard time thinking about the process in that way. They're kind of like, well, what do you mean what I want? I don't get to make the decisions in the end. And no, you don't make the final admissions decisions, but you do decide which colleges are on your list. And you're only going to have options based on where you apply. And so every school that's on your list should really be intentional. It should be on there for a reason. You're not going to like every school equally on your list. That's perfectly normal. You need to give up on that idea. There's going to be a school or schools that you like a lot and that you're really, really, really into and really, really want to go to. And then there are going to be some places where you can see yourself, but you're not dying to go. And usually safer options are places that students tend to be a little bit less enthusiastic about, mostly because human psychology dictates that, the things we know we can get are the things not necessarily that we're most excited about. But I do come across students all the time that find a safer option and they're thrilled about it. And I love this school. I actually have a really great chance of getting in. And isn't it nice to go through the process with something like that, knowing that no matter what, you have a place that you really feel connected to. But you know what, most people, they really love a couple of places or a few places, and then sometimes there can be a really steep drop after that, and other times there's a little bit of in between. But again, you're not going to love every place equally. But every school should be on there intentionally, because when it comes time to write your essays, you're going to need to be able to show how you fit and how you can see yourself on campus, and you need to be able to make them see you on campus and think about wanting you on campus, and you have to seem compelling to them. They're reading so many qualified applications from applicants all over the country and all over the world, and so they need to be able to visualize you as one of the people they want there. And the better your research is as an applicant, the better your essays will be, the better your results will be. And so you really need to do your research. Once you figure out what you want as far as social and academic and location and size, all the things that will come into play when figuring out how to narrow down your list. Do you want Greek life? Do you want to run the other way and you don't want it at all? Are you kind of indifferent to it? Must you have a football team that you can cheer on in the fall and paint your face? Do you not necessarily care if you have that opportunity? Do you prefer bigger classes where you can be a little bit more anonymous? Do you prefer smaller classes where it's really based in discussion and close relationships with professors? Do you care about location? Some students very much want to be in or near a city to have access to those things. Other students very much want a college town and the experience that comes along with that for the 4 years. There's no right or wrong, but you need to figure out what's important to you, and that will help you narrow down your list. Some people will, of course, use academics to narrow their list down. You might have an interest that's not available everywhere, or even if you have an interest that you're going to find pretty much anywhere, like psychology or economics, there's going to be differences in departments and strengths of departments that you might take into consideration if it's an important factor for you. But all things to think about. So you've got to figure out what you want, and then you have to start looking into schools and figuring out which ones speak most to you. And the way to do that is to get a sense of the vibe and how schools that are similar on paper are actually different in real life. So the best way to do that is to talk to current students. If you don't know people through your high school or through family and friends, then you can reach out by looking on the website, look at clubs that are that deal with things that you're interested in. Usually there'll always be a student contact on there. Reach out to that person. You can ask admissions to put you in touch with a current student, but I would encourage you to try and talk with kids who aren't part of the admissions machine and get really unfiltered views of campus life and kind of how things are. And then one really great resource, and it's become invaluable during the pandemic, is colleges are doing a tremendous amount of virtual programming. And so college admissions officers are more accessible than ever, and also students are more accessible than ever. And so follow the admissions office accounts for any school that you're interested in on Instagram. They do lives all the time. They do Q&As. They do student takeovers. You'll get a really, really good sense of how the places differ from one another from that vibe perspective, and kind of be able to distinguish between places that otherwise you might not be able to. That'll help you prioritize schools and figure out where you might feel most comfortable and where you might feel most at home, and perhaps where you might want to apply early decision or early action if the option is available to you. So make sure you do your research. It's really, really important. College list building is all about you doing your due diligence. So you've got to make sure that you figure out what you want. You have to make sure you can figure out the colleges. And it's not only about which schools you like. Make sure that you speak to an advisor to make sure that the ones that you're targeting are ones that they feel would be responsive to your profile as well. And that does go beyond the numbers. So when you're doing your lists, make sure you cross all your T's, dot all your I's. The better your list, the better your essays, the better your results, the happier you'll be. So good luck to you. And if you have any questions, please DM us or join us for one of our Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Instagram lives. See you soon.